Okay, we've got our second example from lesson 1 that now we're going to conduct some hypothesis testing on. So I've added some information to it. And we already have the claim and symbols. At most 3 is the symbol x is less than or equal to 3. Again, it has an equal bar, so we determined that our claim was again a null statement. And greater than 3 was the alternative statement. Because our alternative, which is always what we look at to tell right-tailed, left-tailed, or two-tailed, has an arrow pointing to the right, the symbol is pointing to the right, that means we're conducting a right-tailed test. Okay, now it's time to finish the steps for conducting a full hypothesis test. And now we need to know if we're doing a z-test or a t-test. It has to do with your sample size. Don't just grab the word sample and grab a number because it's going to lead you astray. And a lot of students do that. Sometimes they say, oh, here's the word sample. It must be 3.5. You have to kind of read a little bit more in depth. Sample is how many things did you collect data from? And that's right here. You were collecting data from the number of accidents for each month. So January, maybe there were 5 accidents and you would record 5. February, there might have been 1. So you had 23 months in your sample, so N was 23, and according to our guidelines, if N is less than 30, you conduct a t-test. So that's what we're doing here, and we select that in our calculator. The rest of the options we use our calculator for, so I'm going to insert the video. So we hit our stat key, go over to tests. This time we want to do a t-test, so we have to go down to t-test and hit enter. Again, we have statistics. We already have the mean and standard deviation, so we go straight to statistics. The mean in our sample, in our hypothesis statement, is what it wants here. That was 3, because we had the phrase at most 3. The mean of our sample was 3.5. Standard deviation was 2.2. And we had 23 months in our sample. So next we have to indicate whether it's left-tailed, right-tailed, or two-tailed. Our HA statement was greater than. So we have to go over to the greater than symbol and make sure we hit enter to select it and hit calculate. This time we get a p-value, which is what we're interested here. P-value of 0.1437. We're going to go ahead and round that to 0.144. So we had a p-value that we're going to round to 0.144. Now we do the golden rule. We're comparing our p-value to the level of significance, which they gave us here, level of significance of 0.1. So we have to decide which one's larger. In this case, 0.144 is larger than 0.1. If you're having trouble, if it's been a long time since you've worked with decimals, when you're comparing which one's larger, sometimes it's easiest to put them in the same amount of decimal places. This one is in 3 decimal places. This one, go ahead and put it in 3 decimal places. If you have a decimal place missing, you can add a 0. So now it's really easy to tell. You're comparing the number 144 to the number 100. In this case, P is not less than that. P is greater than that. So we have to fail to reject the null. So that's from that golden rule that you copied into your notes. Again, if you did not do in lesson 2, if you didn't follow the step 1, step 2 that told you what information to pull from the book, make sure you do that because that's important. Now we're going to go to the chart that you were to copy down from the book about what's our final decision about the claim. And because we failed to reject the null, that means we have to look in that row. And again, the claim was a null. So our final decision about the claim that we copy from that chart is that there was not enough evidence. Anytime you fail to reject, that means you didn't have enough evidence. Not enough evidence, and in this case, because our claim was a null, you would put not enough evidence to reject the claim. And in this case, it would be not enough evidence to reject the claim that the number of accidents that occur in Piney Flats is at most 3 per month.